I met Anna at a friend's engagement party. I remember it clearly because I didn't want to be there in the first place. One of those crowded rooftop evenings where everyone's half networking, half pretending they're not bored. I was leaning on the railing with a drink in hand, thinking about heading home, when she walked up and asked if I worked in hotels too. I said no, I was in tech support for a supply chain firm, but I guess I looked the part. Button down, tired face, drink untouched. She laughed. Said she was an administrator at a business hotel downtown. Told me she hated these kinds of events but came for the free wine. That made me laugh. We started talking, and before I knew it, the party was winding down, and I didn't want the night to end. She was sharp, fast-talking, sarcastic in a way that pulled you in. I liked that. She didn't pretend to be overly sweet. She was direct, kind of bold, but funny too. I asked for her number before we left, and we went out that same weekend. We moved quickly. Within 6 months, we were living together. A year after that, we got married at a courthouse. No drama, no guest list, just the two of us and a dinner afterward at a small Italian place. We both agreed we didn't need the spectacle. We weren't the type. At least, that's what I thought. Anna worked for a national hotel chain, mid-range properties, popular with corporate travelers and event people. She started out on the front desk and moved up fast. By the time we met, she was handling regional bookings and scheduling for one of the larger locations. She worked long hours, but she loved the environment. Said she liked that no 2 days were the same. A guest could come in with a suitcase full of drama, and she had to smooth it over by check-in. That kind of pressure excited her. She thrived on chaos. I had a quieter job. I worked remotely most days, troubleshooting logistics software and coordinating with warehouse teams. Nothing flashy. But it gave us stability, and it kept me close to home. I handled the cooking, most of the cleaning, and anything house-related. Anna called me her domestic king once in front of her coworkers, and they laughed. I didn't mind. I liked taking care of things. It was just how we split the roles. She brought the fire, I kept the flame steady. We didn't have kids. Not yet. We talked about it sometimes, usually after a couple glasses of wine on a Friday night. But we were both still chasing our careers, and Anna was always up for a promotion or training program. She was ambitious. Always moving forward. I respected that. I supported it. If someone had asked me a few months ago how things were going, I probably would have said good. Not perfect, we had our arguments, mostly about schedules, missed dinners, her checking her phone constantly even on days off, but overall, we were in sync. We had our routines. Sunday brunch. Movie nights on the couch. Annual trips to one of the chain's resorts, courtesy of their employee vacation perk. She was always proud of that benefit, and we both looked forward to those getaways. We had a good thing going. Busy schedules, different personalities, but we made it work. She handled her world, I handled mine, and we always met in the middle. If anything, the time apart made the quiet moments feel better when they happened. Our life wasn't flashy, but it had structure. It had rhythm. And to me, it worked. Anna's schedule was unpredictable most weeks. She wasn't exactly glued to a desk, it was more like she hovered over half a dozen departments at once. Front desk staff, reservations, maintenance, event bookings, customer complaints. She called it, playing air traffic control with no radar. But she liked it. She liked being in control. When things ran smooth under her, she wore it like a badge. The hotel she worked at was one of the bigger ones in the chain. 5 floors, conference space, pool, attached restaurant, business travelers from Monday to Thursday and weddings or sports teams on the weekends. It was constant movement. She was always on her feet, always buzzing from one floor to the next with that company-issued tablet tucked under her arm. I'd stop trying to predict when she'd be home. Some nights she'd walk through the door at 6, sometimes close to midnight. But she always had a story. Some guest threw a fit over towels. A bride changed her mind about centerpieces an hour before the reception. A pipe burst on the third floor. Anna had a way of telling it all like a sitcom, fast, sarcastic, with just enough drama to keep it entertaining. I'd listen while finishing up dinner or folding laundry, and she'd unwind with a glass of wine, kicking off her shoes like she'd just finished a Broadway performance. She knew her job inside and out. Upper management noticed. Over the past 2 years, she started getting involved in cross-location work, visiting other hotels in the chain, helping with onboarding, training new managers. They'd send her to other cities for 2 or 3 days at a time. Not often, but enough that I knew when her suitcase was sitting out, she was heading somewhere the next morning. I didn't mind. We'd gotten used to her being gone here and there. I'd hold things down at home. She'd text when she landed, sometimes FaceTime from the hotel if the Wi-Fi wasn't terrible. We joked about how all the hotels looked the same. Beige walls, patterned carpet, dim hallway lights, cookie-cutter comfort. She'd say, honestly, I could sleepwalk through half these buildings and still find the front desk. Every year, the company offered its full-time staff a complimentary stay at one of their resorts, a small thank you for loyalty. Most employees just used it for a weekend getaway, but Anna liked to make it count. We'd book a full 5 nights, usually somewhere warmer. The rooms were basic, but clean. Nothing glamorous. But the pool was good, the drinks were cheap, and the price, free, was unbeatable. I always looked forward to those trips. It was one of the few times we really unplugged. Home life was stable. No chaos, no drama. I handled groceries, errands, home repairs. She handled the momentum. We made a good team. And for all her work demands, she never let things spiral at home. I gave her credit for that. She didn't pretend to be domestic, but she kept things sharp. Bills were paid. Birthdays remembered. Travel booked to the hour. We weren't the romantic type that flooded social media with anniversary posts or couple selfies. That wasn't our lane. But the way things ran, between her job, my work, and everything at home, it worked. We had our system. I stuck to mine. She stuck to hers. And neither one of us missed a beat. The most recent trip we took together was to a hotel near the coast, one of the newer ones in Anna's company's portfolio. A beachfront location, a little more upscale than their usual properties. She was excited about it. Said it was one of the flagships of the chain and had just finished renovations. That year, we timed the employee vacation benefit to land in early spring, right before the rush hit. We had 5 nights booked. Just the 2 of us, no work, no phones unless absolutely necessary. Getting there was easy. The company covered the stay and gave a small travel allowance, which helped with gas and meals. Anna handled the booking. She always did, made it look effortless. She had all the reservation codes saved, called ahead to make sure we'd have a king bed instead of 2 queens, and even requested a room on the quieter side of the building. The hotel itself was nice. Simple but clean. Neutral colors, lots of glass. The kind of place where everything is modern minimalist, but the drawers still stick a little when you try to open them. The view from our window overlooked the pool. In the mornings, I'd sit out on the small balcony with coffee while Anna took forever getting ready inside. That was always her thing. She brought twice as many clothes as she needed and still said she had nothing to wear. We split our days between the beach, lazy lunches, and whatever small attractions were nearby. Nothing extravagant. I liked it that way. I don't need a packed itinerary to feel like a trip is worth it. Just being in a different setting, without alarms or email pings, was enough. Anna was relaxed, more than I'd seen her in a while. She still checked her phone here and there, usually under the excuse of, just making sure things aren't falling apart at my location, but I didn't think anything of it. That was part of who she was. If she could go a full hour without looking at her inbox, I called it a win. One night we ate dinner at the hotel restaurant, then walked the beach afterward. No heavy talks, no big moments. Just walking. She made fun of the music the restaurant had played, some awkward lounge remix of classic rock, and then started naming all the flaws she noticed in the service, down to how the wine glasses were wiped. It made me laugh. She couldn't turn the hotel brain off, even when she was off duty. Back in the room, we watched something dumb on TV, and she fell asleep before it ended. I cleaned up the space out of habit, folded up the blanket she kicked off, turned off the lights, put away the empty glasses. Same way I did at home. The whole trip had that kind of rhythm to it. Comfortable. Familiar. No pressure. Everything ran like it always did. The third day of the trip was about as easygoing as the first two. We got breakfast from the buffet downstairs, overcooked eggs, lukewarm coffee, but Anna didn't care. She was more interested in critiquing the layout of the dining area. The way she talked, you'd think she designed half the chain herself. "This carpet's wrong for this kind of traffic," she said, tapping it with her sandal. "It's going to look destroyed in 6 months." I let her go on. She was in her element. After breakfast, we hit the pool. She took her usual spot under the umbrella and pulled out her tablet, half working, half scrolling. I swam a few laps, then stretched out next to her, and we talked about maybe going into town later that evening. She said she'd check if there were any good places to eat nearby that weren't just tourist traps. Around noon, she said she was heading back up to the room to shower. I told her I'd stick around a little longer, maybe grab something cold from the pool bar and meet her later. She gave me a quick wave and left, tablet under one arm, phone in the other. I stayed down for a while, just relaxing. Eventually, I realized I left my sunglasses in the room, so I figured I'd head up, grab them, and maybe change before we went out. When I got to the room and opened the door, everything was quiet. I figured she might still be in the bathroom. Sure enough, the shower was running, and the door was mostly closed. Nothing strange about that. I went to the chair near the window where I'd left my sunglasses and grabbed them, then sat for a second to check my phone. As I was getting up to leave, I heard her voice from behind the door. It wasn't loud, but she was definitely talking. I assumed she was on a call. But the tone of it didn't sound like her usual work mode. It was softer, more casual. Like she wasn't just giving instructions or answering questions. I said, "Hey, just grabbing my stuff," and she replied quickly, "Okay." That was it. I left. Later, back at the pool, she came down looking exactly how she always did after a shower, hair pinned up, clean makeup, casual dress. She sat down, leaned back, and asked if I'd checked the bar menu yet. I hadn't. I just said, "Were you on a call up there?" She didn't miss a beat. Just checking messages. Nothing real. Then she reached for her drink. I didn't push. There wasn't anything to push on. She seemed relaxed. The day kept moving. That night, everything was normal again. Dinner, beach walk, back to the room. No weird energy. Nothing different. Still, that moment in the room stuck with me, not in a way I could explain. It just didn't fit with the rest of the trip. The fourth day of the trip started like the others. Breakfast downstairs, same buffet, same quiet table near the back of the room. Anna was in a good mood. She spent 10 minutes explaining how the check-in staff could speed up the morning line by shifting the concierge table 2 feet to the left. I mostly just nodded while drinking my coffee. We decided to spend the morning walking through the small shops a few blocks from the hotel. Tourist stuff, beach towels, overpriced sunscreen, keychains with fake Woodburn names. We wandered in and out of a few places, bought a pair of sunglasses for myself, and grabbed smoothies from a place she'd seen on the resort's flyer. It was simple. Comfortable. Around midday, we headed back to the hotel. Anna said she was going to swing by the front desk and ask about a late checkout for our final day. I said I'd head up to the room and wait there. She said she'd be back in 10. It took her almost 30. When she walked in, she didn't mention anything about the front desk or the checkout. Just dropped her purse on the bench and said she was starving. I asked, so? Late checkout possible? She blinked. Oh. Yeah. They said they'd try to work something out. Then she headed to the bathroom to fix her hair. I didn't say anything, but it felt strange. She wasn't the type to forget the purpose of her errand. Especially when it was something she'd brought up. It didn't add up with how sharp she usually was. But again, there was nothing to point at, just a delay, a vague answer, and the feeling that something didn't match. That afternoon, we went back down to the beach. It was cloudy, but warm enough to swim. She didn't bring her phone, which was unusual, but not suspicious. She just said, finally giving my head a break, and tossed it into the room safe before we left. She was relaxed again. Talkative. We played cards at the outdoor bar. Laughed. Everything looked exactly like a vacation should. But later that night, when I got up to grab water from the mini fridge, I noticed her phone sitting on the desk, out of the safe again. The screen lit up when I walked past. It wasn't the notification that caught me, it was the background. She had changed it. A new photo. One I hadn't seen before. A dimly lit shot of what looked like a rooftop bar. Not a picture she would have taken just now. I hadn't been with her anywhere like that on this trip. I asked, "When'd you take that?" She looked up from her pillow. "Oh, it's just some old photo I had saved. Thought it looked better than the plain one." I said nothing and went back to bed. The next morning, Anna got up earlier than usual. I woke to the sound of the shower running and the blow dryer starting a few minutes later. When I looked at the clock, it was barely 7:30. She was usually the one sleeping in while I got up and wandered down for coffee. I sat up, rubbing my eyes. Early start. She called back from the bathroom, thought I'd get ahead of the rush. Pool fills up fast and I want a good spot today. Fair enough. She came out with her hair pinned up, makeup on, a new bikini top I hadn't seen before, and one of those loose button-down shirts over it. She looked good, better than usual for just a pool day. I made a comment about it. She smiled and said, "Just because we're on vacation doesn't mean I have to look like I gave up." That was her humor. A little sharp, but meant to be funny. I laughed and let it go. She grabbed her tote bag, sunglasses, and phone, and said she'd go down ahead of me to get chairs. I told her I'd be right behind her after I finished waking up. 10-15 minutes, tops. When I got down there, she wasn't at the pool. I looked around, checked the far side, the shaded end, even walked around the back where the hot tub was. Nothing. I tried calling her, no answer. Figured maybe she went to the restaurant to get something or stopped at the front desk again. Another 15 minutes passed. I texted, "Where'd you go?" No reply. I walked back up to the room, more confused than anything. When I opened the door, she was inside, towel around her waist, holding her phone, startled for half a second when she saw me. "Didn't think you'd be back already," she said. "I thought you were at the pool." I was. It was too crowded. So I came back up to wait. "Did you not see my text?" She glanced at the phone. "Oh. Sorry. Just put it on silent. Didn't notice." The story worked. It wasn't even worth challenging. But something in her face, it looked like she wasn't sure if she'd been caught doing something or if she'd imagined I wouldn't come looking. I didn't say anything more. I took a shower, and we went about the rest of the day like we had the others. Lunch, walking, a lazy hour near the beach. But my head was busier than usual. That was the third time something didn't quite add up. None of it damning. Nothing dramatic. But the pattern was becoming harder to ignore. And the way she looked when I opened that door. That stayed with me longer than it should have. By the time we hit the last full day of the trip, something had definitely shifted, not in any dramatic way, but the mood between us felt flatter. Anna wasn't being cold, and I wasn't acting different on purpose. We still did the usual things, ate, walked, swam, even joked around. But there was something under the surface now. At least for me. That morning, she wanted to go into town early. Said she'd seen a little boutique 2 blocks off the main strip that had handmade scarves or candles or whatever. I wasn't really interested, but I told her I'd come along. She hesitated for a second, then said, "Actually, I think I'll just go quick while you get ready. I want to get back in time for the pool." I shrugged and said sure. She kissed my cheek, grabbed her crossbody bag, and was out the door in minutes. I didn't rush. Took my time with the shower, got dressed, made some coffee in the room. About 30 minutes passed, then 40. Around the 50-minute mark, I started getting curious. It wasn't that the store run was taking forever, it's just that she was usually faster than this, and she hadn't texted. I shot her a quick message, "You still alive out there?" She replied after 5 minutes, "Almost done. Walking back now." Another 15 minutes passed before she walked in. Bag in hand, hair a little more wind-blown than I expected. She said, "Sorry. I ended up talking to someone from the other property, remember Kevin? The guy I waved to in the lobby?" I nodded. "Yeah. He was doing a site visit nearby. I saw him on the street. We talked for a minute." She didn't seem flustered. Just casual. But I was surprised she hadn't mentioned him before. She hadn't brought him up since the lobby wave on day 3, and suddenly they'd run into each other on a side street. "Is he working at this location now?" I asked. "No, I think he's just rotating through for the week. Helping with staffing. They've been short lately." "Is that what you two talked about for 45 minutes? She raised an eyebrow. "What, you timing me now?" I laughed, tried to keep it light. "You're just usually faster when you're on a scarf mission." She rolled her eyes. "Sorry, I'll speed up my spontaneous run-ins with old coworkers next time." She headed for the bathroom after that, and the conversation died. I didn't bring it back up. But something about it kept replaying in my head. There was nothing wrong with running into someone, obviously. And if she had spent time talking, fine. But it was how she told me. Like she knew it sounded weird and was trying to say it before I could question it. And that bit about talking for a minute didn't match the actual time she was gone. We spent most of the afternoon by the water. Nothing seemed different. She laid out on a chair, flipped through a magazine, scrolled her phone. I played it cool. Acted normal. But in my head, things weren't lining up anymore. The moments that used to seem like background noise were starting to sound more like static. And the way she mentioned that guy's name, the tone, the timing, it felt like I'd just caught the edge of something I wasn't meant to see. Our last night at the resort was supposed to be simple. We'd planned to have dinner at the rooftop bar, nothing fancy, just something different to cap the trip. Anna was the one who suggested it. She said she'd seen photos online and wanted to check it out before we left. Earlier in the day, we'd split up again. She said she wanted to relax alone by the spa pool and maybe stop by the gift shop afterward. I told her I'd take a walk around town and pick up something small for my niece. No issues. We agreed to meet back in the room around 6:30 to get ready. By the time I was back at the hotel, it was close to 6. I figured I'd shower and change before she came back, so I headed straight up to the room. I opened the door, and froze. Anna was in the bed. But she wasn't alone. There was a man with her. Shirt off. Her legs tangled with his under the sheets. Their faces close. Both of them half sitting up like they'd just started pulling apart when they heard the door. The room was dead quiet except for the low hum of the AC. My body didn't react at first. My mind barely did. I think my brain stopped before I even stepped fully inside. I looked at her. She looked at me. Her mouth opened a little, like she wanted to say something, but nothing came out. The guy shifted slightly, clearly trying to cover himself, but not in a panic. He wasn't shocked. He just looked, frozen. Like I was a problem they hadn't accounted for. Anna moved first. Pulled the sheet up. Sat back further. Still didn't speak. I didn't scream. I didn't ask questions. I didn't demand an explanation. I just looked at both of them, then turned and walked out. My hands were shaking by the time I got into the elevator. My heart was pounding, but not from rage. Just from the shock of it. Not guessing. Not wondering. Just knowing. I stepped outside, sat on one of the low concrete benches near the parking lot, and stared at the fountain for a solid 10 minutes before I even checked my phone. She hadn't messaged. She hadn't followed me out. The man, I didn't get a full look at him, but I didn't need to. I already knew. It was Kevin. I don't know how I knew. I just did. The way she'd said his name. The way she brushed past the details. The way everything kept not quite adding up. I didn't go back to the room. I booked another one on the opposite end of the building, using my own name and card. I didn't sleep much that night. I didn't plan, either. I just laid there, staring at the ceiling, playing every moment from the past week over again like a bad movie. She'd used the company's vacation perk to set this up. She'd picked the hotel. She'd known he was here. Every smile, every joke, every "I love you" while we were on that beach, she said it with that already happening behind the scenes. And I'd missed it. Until I walked in on both of them and finally saw exactly what was real. The next morning, I got up early. I hadn't slept much, but I felt clear, no fog, no doubt. I didn't go back to our room. I didn't text her. I didn't call. I showered in silence, packed my things, and checked out of the room I'd booked for myself. But I wasn't done. At the front desk, I asked to speak to the property manager, not a desk supervisor, not guest services. The manager. When he arrived, I showed him my ID, mentioned my wife's name, and told him we were both employees in the chain, one current, one on a staff benefit stay. He nodded, polite but cautious. Then I told him what I'd seen. No dramatic wording. Just facts. I told him my wife, an administrator from another branch, had used her company-issued vacation perk to spend her free stay hooking up with another employee, Kevin, also from the chain. In the hotel. In a company-paid room. Behind the back of her spouse. I gave names. Times. Room numbers. He listened. Took notes. Said he'd have to escalate it immediately. HR will need to handle this, he said. And possibly legal. Good, I said. Make sure they do. Then I left. She didn't know I'd gone yet. That's what I wanted. I walked 3 blocks into town, found a small cafe, and sat with my phone for over an hour. During that time, I locked her out of our shared accounts, banking, flight apps, cards. I didn't cancel the return flight, but I removed her from the reservation. I changed the PIN to our joint card. I had everything on me, my ID, my credit cards, and the keys to our home. She had nothing but what was in her purse. Around noon, I finally texted her. You can stay with him. I'm done. I've already reported both of you. You're off the return flight. Do not call. I didn't get a reply right away. By the time I boarded the train out of town, because I wasn't even giving her the dignity of flying back on my dime, she had tried to call 4 times. I didn't answer. I didn't listen to the voicemails. I blocked the number. Later, I learned the fallout had hit hard and fast. The company opened an internal investigation within a day. Anna had violated multiple conduct clauses, unprofessional use of her staff benefit, fraternization with an employee from another property without disclosure, and misuse of property resources. The man she'd been with, Kevin, was fired too. Neither of them got a severance. Their internal files were flagged, which meant they were now blacklisted from any future position in the chain. And on top of that, she was hit with a fine. That part one hadn't expected, but it made sense. The company treated their free vacation program like a gift, technically taxable, legally structured as an employee retention perk. By misusing it, she triggered a clause that converted the full cost of the stay into a chargeback. She owed them thousands. She tried to call again through her sister's phone. I blocked that number too. She was still in that city, standing outside the only place she thought was safe. And I left her there, without her job, without money, without a place to stay. She walked into that hotel thinking she was in control. She walked out with nothing. The silence that came afterward was the loudest part. Once I got home, everything was still. No calls. No pounding on the door. No dramatic airport scenes. Just nothing. I think it took Anna a few days to realize I wasn't bluffing. That I wasn't giving her a chance to talk her way back in. I didn't post about it. I didn't tell my friends the full story, just that we'd separated. People asked questions, sure, especially the ones who'd seen us at get-togethers or heard Anna talk about work promotions, but I kept the answers short. I didn't want sympathy. I didn't want people picking through the details. I wanted distance. Eventually, I heard bits and pieces from mutual connections. She'd gone to stay with her cousin temporarily. Then with an old friend. She tried getting another job, but the blacklist across the hotel chain followed her. Word spreads fast in that world. No one wanted to touch the mess she'd made. The fine hit her account hard. She'd never been great with saving money, her paychecks went quick, and I'd handled most of the planning and budgeting. Now, without that structure, she was scrambling. She tried to fight the penalty, but the contract she signed was airtight. Her benefit was revoked, and she owed them the equivalent of a full-rate week-long stay at a prime-season resort. I ignored every attempt she made to contact me. A few emails. A few blocked numbers. The only one I responded to was her attorney, who messaged about retrieving some of her belongings. I packed everything myself, left it boxed in our garage, and had a third party hand it off. She never came to the house. It took a few weeks, but I started feeling normal again. Waking up without anxiety. Eating at the table instead of in front of the TV. I got back into my work routine. Took on a few extra projects. Walked to clear my head. Slept through the night. I'd catch myself sometimes, thinking about that trip like it was just a vacation. Then that door would open again in my mind, and I'd see it exactly how it happened. But it didn't sting anymore. Not like it did the first few days. Now it felt distant. Like watching someone else's story. I told my family what happened, eventually. My sister was furious. My mom just nodded and said, I always thought something was off about her. They all offered support, but I didn't need it. I'd already made peace with the fallout. It wasn't just about the cheating. It was how easily she lied, how easily she risked everything, and how quickly she moved when she thought I wasn't watching. She'd probably convince herself it was a mistake, a moment, something that just happened. But I knew better. It wasn't a moment. It was a plan. One she carried out with someone she already had waiting. One she used the job for. The vacation. The trust. And now she'd lost all of it. She hasn't tried to come back since. No handwritten letters. No late-night apologies. I think she knows there's no opening left. She wanted something else. Now she has it. And I've got what she thought I'd lose. Control. Peace. And the truth. It's been almost 3 months since the trip. Things have settled. Quietly. I didn't burn the house down emotionally. I didn't go looking for replacements. I just went back to living. Day by day. Meal by meal. No chaos. No guessing. I got promoted at work. Not a massive change in title, but more responsibility and better pay. The kind of thing I might have told her about once. Now it just lived in my head for a few minutes before I got back to whatever I was doing. The satisfaction didn't come from sharing it, it came from knowing I earned it without her in the picture. The house is still clean. Everything's in its place. I replaced the key code. Changed the locks for good measure. There's no trace of her left here. I boxed everything up, her clothes, her stuff from the bathroom, even the dumb coffee mug she used every morning. Gone. Out of sight. Out of reach. I haven't heard from her in weeks. Not directly. The last I heard, she was trying to pick up work in hospitality on the side. Freelance event support, maybe some admin gigs for smaller venues. Nothing stable. Nothing long-term. That part didn't matter to me. I wasn't tracking her out of revenge. I just wanted confirmation she wasn't anywhere near my life anymore. Her name's not on anything now. Not the mortgage. Not the utilities. Not the accounts. I did the paperwork. Filed everything. Got things locked down tight. She disappeared off my radar the moment I walked out of that hotel. And somehow, it didn't break me. That's the part one keep thinking about. I thought it would. I thought seeing her in that bed would crack something permanent. But it didn't. It was like pulling a curtain back and finally seeing what was always there. I didn't need to yell. I didn't need to cry. I just walked out and started cleaning house. People keep asking if I'll date again. I don't have an answer. Right now I'm not in a rush. I'm not avoiding it, but I'm not craving it either. I like the silence too much. I like eating when I want. Sleeping when I want. Watching something dumb without someone judging it from across the room. I still think about the trip sometimes, not her, just the absurdity of it. The fact that she set the whole thing up. Picked the hotel. Booked the room. Packed a bag. Said she loved me, smiled in every photo, swam in that pool like nothing was wrong. She used the company's gift to make space for her lie. And in the end, I didn't just take that away from her, I made sure she felt every inch of the floor drop beneath her when it collapsed. No revenge rant. No second chances. Just silence. She built something rotten and watched it fall. I got on that train and left her there with her lie, her fine, and the man she used to carry it out. That was her ending. Mine is just this. A clean house. A locked door. And no more questions.